The University of Texas at Tyler Productions presents a PESTEL presentation featuring the country of Brazil. Brazil is located just south of the United States in South America, and it is the largest country on that continent. Brazil is the fifth largest country in the world, coming in behind the United States, which is ranked in third. Both the United States and Brazil's population are increasing. However, the United States population is growing at a slightly faster pace. Brazil became a democracy in the 1980s, and in 2010, the country elected its first female president, Dilma Rousseff. President Rousseff was re-elected in 2014. However, due to an investigation and possible impeachment, Rousseff is currently suspended. Serving as interim president is Vice President Michel Temer. The level of corruption is moderate right now in Brazil due to the political payoffs and bribery that can be traced as high up in the government as the country's president. It is due to this corruption that Brazil's Transparency Index has dropped from 43 in 2014 to 38 in 2015, dropping the country's ranking to 76 out of a total of 167. Mateus Schneider do Canto lived in Brazil for 20 years before moving to the United States. Mateus, can you provide any information as to how this corruption is affecting the Brazilian people?
Amidst a big turmoil, both economic and political, a lot of, not riots, but protests in the cities, a lot of people not very satisfied with the current situation, a lot of corruption scandals.
Thank you, Mateus. Before we venture any business operations into Brazil, we must consider the current political unrest and how it could negatively implicate the business.
Hi, I'll be briefing you on the economic information, socioculture, and some aspects of technology for Brazil. First aspect I'd like to look at is GDP growth. As you can see, Brazil had relatively high GDP growth in 2010, but as of late drastically dropped off, most likely due to political turmoil in the country. Next, I'd like to take a look at GNI per capita PPP. As you can see, Brazil is significantly lower than the United States. However, Brazil has consistently raised from 2000 to 2015. The next slide has four measures: trade freedom, corruption, business freedom, and property rights. However, I'd like to concentrate on two: corruption and property rights, as there are two major concerns prior to doing business in Brazil. Next, I'll highlight the ease of doing business in Brazil. As you can see from the chart, the U.S. is extremely low, and the ease of doing business with regards to regulation is minor. Contrasting that with Brazil, there will be more complexity in doing business with Brazil in regards to regulation. Now we'll take a look at the FDI inflow and outflow for Brazil. As you can see, the inflow has increased over the last 15 years, and more so in the last 6, while FDI outflow has had minor gains and losses within the same period. The final aspect of economic analysis I'd like to talk about, and what I think is most important, is the Human Development Index, or HDI. For Brazil, it has steadily increased over the past 15 years, starting at 0.683 in 2000 and ending up in 0.785 in 2015. Although the United States has also increased, it has not done so as sharply as Brazil. Now, I would like to highlight and emphasize some of Brazil's socioculture data. Very good indicators of culture will include the Hofstede and Trumpenaars guides. What I'd like to highlight here is Brazil is a collectivism society. As you can see from the Hofstede chart and individualism, they rank extremely low. And the Trumpenaars and the individual collectivism, they rank lower. Another important aspect would be that they are a description society, as you can see from the Trumpenaars. Brazil's national language is Portuguese. Incidentally, it is the largest speaking Portuguese nation in the world. Due to this heavy Portuguese influence, Brazil is 80% Roman Catholic, while 99% of the population believes in a higher power. The next aspect of socioculture I'd like to discuss is the Education Development Index, or EDI. On the EDI, the U.S. ranks 8th and Brazil ranks 75th. However, Brazil has steadily risen from a 0.581 in 2000 to a 0.677 in 2015. And to end my presentation, I'd like to talk about some of the technology aspects of Brazil. First, for technology, I'd like to discuss the R&D expenditures per GDP. As you can see with both the US and Brazil, GDP expenditures have been relatively steady for the last 15 years, with minor increases in 2007 through 2012. You'll also notice that the U.S. spends significantly more GDP percentage on R&D. A good indicator of technology is the amount of internet users per the country. The U.S. has approximately 80 users per 100, while Brazil is half of that at 40 users per 100. This concludes my analysis of Brazil PESTEL.
The environment of Brazil. Brazil boasts rich ecosystems that are vital to national development and the well-being of the Brazilian population. Within the border is 1/3 of the world's tropical forests, 20% of the world's fresh water, and the Cerrado, a tropical savanna consisting of the highest level of biodiversity in the world. The Amazon rainforest is one of the widest known tropical forests, and after deforestation started destroying it, as well as the Cerrado, the Amazon Region Protected Areas Program was started in an effort to provide local, small entrepreneurs with access to major markets for increased competition. The government of Brazil began the Santa Catarina Rural Program, which recovers the road systems. Looking at the Environmental Performance Index, the United States fares better than Brazil with an overall rank of 26 compared to Brazil's rate of 46. Brazil and the United States have run fairly even for a number of years until 2014, when Brazil saw a huge drop in their rank due to the relatively rapid urbanization taking place and the effect that it had on the water and sanitation. There was and still is a lot of news coverage about the unsafe sanitation and unsafe drinking water in Brazil due to the Olympic Games this year. Brazil has struggled in both areas for a number of years, while the United States has maintained consistent, with only small improvements toward a near-perfect scoring of 100 for both. The legal system in Brazil. The country of Brazil uses a civil law system modeled after the Roman civil law system. It is a federative republic, and the courts decide cases based on analogy, custom, and general legal principles. It is made up of municipalities, states, and the federal district. Each of these issue laws within their realm of responsibility, and the courts are divided into a hierarchy. As a connected part of the legal system, the Justice Forum is independent of Congress and the President. The courts consist of the lower levels of court being the ordinary courts and specialized courts, with the highest two levels being the Superior Court of Justice and the Supreme Federal Court. Regarding the rule of law in Brazil, Brazilians disapprove of President Dilma Rousseff's corruption and crime policies, and she now faces a huge impeachment investigation, as covered earlier. Due to political and economic influence, the court system is inefficient, and this is also caused by being overburdened with extremely lengthy and complex contract cases.
We will now discuss the SWOT analysis on Brazil. SWOT analysis reviews the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats associated with Brazil. Brazil's strengths are in its high oil reserves and its high population. I spoke with Anya Thomas, Director of Marketing in Latin America, for a company which produces kitchen appliances. She indicated that the high population with the growing middle class enables her firm to be very selective in who they interview and hire because they do receive so many applicants. Further, the growing middle class means more people are able to purchase new kitchen appliances. The weaknesses in Brazil include the corruption at the highest governmental levels, the lack of investments in industry and infrastructure, and the education system. Ms. Thomas indicated that the corruption levels make it hard to do business in Brazil because her company does not offer bribes, and that dramatically slows down contract negotiations in Brazil. Further, the lack of investment in industry and infrastructure means they are losing connections when they make Skype business calls, which delays business interactions. In regards to the opportunities, Brazil utilized the 2014 World Cup to highlight the Brazilian people, their natural resources, and their facilities. The 2016 Olympics is another opportunity to showcase Brazil as a premium tourist attraction and to bring in money from tourists. Another opportunity is improving the education system in Brazil. Currently, preschool is not mandatory, and there are no guarantees that a preschool is available for all children in all cities. However, school for 6 to 14-year-olds is now mandatory. School for 14-year-old children up to age 17 is being considered to be mandatory starting this year, 2016. After 17 years of age, there are technical schooling options and higher education options, both of which are public institutions. In direct contrast to the lower education system, the higher public education is renowned and competitive. The children that are most likely to achieve admittance are the children who had a private school education. These children come from the growing middle class in Brazil. I spoke with Tiago Pinto, a native Brazilian, in regards to the education in Brazil, and here is what he had to say.
So it's very poor. For instance, I had to go to private school in order to be able to attend a good university.
Threats to Brazil include the pandemic diseases, very high interest rates, and the HIV virus. The Zika virus is one of the pandemic diseases that is a very serious threat to Brazil. Mosquito bites cause the Zika virus. This concludes our presentation on the country of Brazil. Thank you very much for your time and attention.